living like the winner do.
See me with the crew, had to get some food. I see you looking like you do. Had to make a move. Still I gotta grow in a Jimmy Choo. Break the rules, no you're not a fool, but I'm in the mood.
Without further ado, this is the beginning of a new series. I don't know what I'm gonna call it yet. Something like New York City Gangsters, New York City Street Legends, something like that. But without further ado, let's get to it, man. The story of Larry Davis. Peace.
Officers were wounded, and now Davis is on trial. The jury selection, however, has been slow and controversial. Charges of racial bias flying about the courtroom.
21-year-old Davis is charged with 9 counts of first-degree attempted murder, all stemming from a wild shootout with police 2 years ago. 6 cops were injured. Davis escaped, but was captured 17 days later.
On November 19, 1986, 9 New York City police officers with nearly 20 outside the building raided the Bronx apartment of Davis's sister. In the ensuing shootout, Davis escaped uninjured and all 6 officers who had been shot survived. Police explained the raid as an attempt to question Davis as a multiple murder suspect, finally obtained an arrest warrant for that, and re-explained the raid as an attempt to arrest him. On a massive manhunt 17th day, he was traced to a Bronx building and hid in an unknown family unit. Telephoned by the police, he claimed to hold its occupants hostage. After night-long negotiations, convinced by media presence the police would not shoot, he surrendered peacefully. Davis's legal defense, led by a William Kunstler, contended that the raid was a pretense to murder Davis for knowledge of officers' alleged complicity in illicit drug sales and to punish him for abandoning his own drug dealing under them, which definitely sounded plausible. We all know how corrupt the police force is, but let's keep going. Okay, in March 1988, on jury trial for a killing of 4 drug dealers, allegedly the 86 raid's reason, Davis was acquitted. Then in November, as to the 9 raiding and 6 shot officers, his acquittal of aggravated assault and attempted murder triggered widespread outrage. About 1,000 New York City police officers publicly demonstrated. Yet for many others, Davis became a folk hero. Still others thought him as an unsavory character, but probably truthful about the police and the shootout. Simple as that, you know. For people in the streets, this counts as a win, you know. For all the bad things that police get away with, this was definitely a win for the people, regardless of any details you could say about Larry Davis's life. Of course, he wasn't a perfect person, but hey, we beat the police for once in a while, you know, out of all the times that we ever have suffered at the foot and hand of a police officer, all right? Continuing on, serving 5 to 15 years on the November 1988 convictions for illegal gun possession, Davis was acquitted of another alleged drug dealer's murder. But in a third murder trial about another alleged drug dealer, Davis was convicted and sentenced to 25 years to life. Converting to Islam, he changed his name. Maintaining his innocence, he continued to allege that the police had framed him. A prevalent view attributes his infamous acquittal rather to racial bias by a proverbial Bronx jury, but particularly with the Mall admissions, 1990s exposure of widespread criminality, including drug dealing and violence by New York City police officers, and then a 2003 independent documentary favoring Davis's explanation. His story continues to provoke widespread divided reactions. Okay, now, by way of Wikipedia, let's get into a little bit of the brother Larry Davis's personal life. It says here, an aspiring rapper, Davis was known by peers as musically talented, played multiple instruments. He was also entrepreneurial, reputedly operating small music studios in the Bronx and Manhattan, while also repairing and modifying motorcycles. Now let's get into problems with the police. Davis's arrest record, starting in early 1983, included a 1984 robbery conviction and subsequent probation violation. By the November 1986 shootout, a court hearing for it had been postponed 4 times. Soon after the successful manhunt, the Bronx District Attorney's Office alleged that, as the New York Times then paraphrased, Davis was part of a small, loosely organized, very violent group of gunmen who had robbed, assaulted, and slain drug dealers in the Bronx and northern Manhattan in recent months. So clearly what they're saying is they're alleging that Larry Davis was basically the head of an extortion and stick-up kid robbery ring that were very violent and very efficient, clearly, right? Approaching trial, the district attorney's office had one witness outside of law enforcement who admitted under oath to steering traffic to coke spots. Allegedly on October 26, 1986, in Manhattan's Washington Heights section, Gray was robbed of $2, and 4 days later, October 30th, in the borough's Harlem section, spotted the robber, later understood as Davis, about to rob some cocaine dealers too. Reportedly, he thus alerted the police and then rode in the police car, that chased the getaway car carrying Davis and two other men to the Bronx's High Bridge section, where along Jerome Avenue, upon issuing 3 gunshots at the police, the 3 men evaded arrest by vanishing into an apartment building. All right, now let's get into the infamous shootout and the escape. On the evening of Wednesday, November 19th, 1986, acting on a tip, an NYPD team of 27 from the 41st Precinct and the Emergency Service Unit, the ESU, converged on the 6-story Fulton Avenue apartment building where 2 of Davis' sisters had adjoining apartments on the ground floor at about 8:30 p.m. 15 officers surrounding the building and 12 others entered. 9 of these went to the 3-room apartment of Davis' sister, Regina Lewis, and 7 entered it. Inside were Davis, his girlfriend, his sister, her husband, and 4 children. Lewis' 2 infant children were asleep in the bedroom at the time. Interviews the next day, Regina Lewis reportedly once she answered a door knock, the police entered the living room with guns drawn, ordered the adults to get the children, and called out, "Come out, Larry, you don't have a chance. We've got you surrounded." At trial, the police alleged that Davis had fired first. The jury believed that events presented by the defense, in which an officer entered the apartment with a shotgun and fired at Davis while he was seated behind a desk holding his baby. The officer, thinking he had hit Davis, was then shot in the neck by Davis with a handgun. The police took over, returning fire as they retreated. In the confusion, no one kept track of Davis, who slipped into his other sister's apartment and escaped out a back window. Lewis had complained to her brother about him bringing guns to the apartment and told him to get out. He did leave but returned. She also quoted him as telling her, "If I'm caught in the street, the police are gonna shoot me, but I'm gonna shoot them first." Boom. It should be very well known that the brother Larry Davis was, even though, he is known as someone who shot it out with the police, he ran off on the plug, which was the police who had him selling tons and tons of drugs for him. It is also known that he wasn't the best of men, period. He was a criminal and he definitely hurt people. Now, continuing on to Wikipedia, let's just read about his murder and attempted murder trials, and let's find out about some of the things that Larry Davis was either convicted for or went to trial for and beat, all right? Now, the Bronx County District Attorney, along with the District Attorney in Manhattan and in Long Island, had many charges against Larry Davis. They included weapons possession, murder of drug dealers, attempted murder of police, kidnapping, and automobile theft. Despite 3 trials in 2 years, prosecutors were unable to convince a jury that Larry Davis was guilty for any but the weapons charge. The ones he used in shooting the police officers, until the jury convicted him and his brother Eddie Davis in the August 1986 killing of a drug dealer. Now, I also want to say that everything that's said here is simply just news. A lot of this is what the police say. Larry Davis also always said that it was the police trying to set him up, being that, he in a sense defeated the police, and we all know how corrupt police are. And if he did it, then that's up to the creator heat method created by now, but let's just get into the details of these cases. March 1988, acquittal for the killing of 4 Bronx drug dealers. The 4 killings occurred in October 1986. The prosecution, contending that Davis was a crack dealer who specialized in the armed robbery of rival crack dealers, called over 50 witnesses, encompassing ballistic evidence and fingerprints on a cash box, placing Davis at the crime scene. Davis's attorneys, in their opening and closing arguments, contended that the prosecution's evidence was fabricated, framing Davis to excuse the infamous raid. They contended Davis had been recruited into a drug ring by rogue police officers aiming to kill him in the raid. Next, November 1988 acquittal for shooting of 9 police officers. Davis faced numerous charges from the infamous shootout, where he shot 6 police officers, 9 counts of attempted murder, 6 counts of aggravated assault, 8 counts of criminal weapons possession, and 2 counts of criminal firearm use. Convicted only on criminal weapons possession, Davis was sentenced to 5 to 15 years. And the next case, December 89, acquittal for the murder of a Harlem drug dealer. Victor Lagombre, reputedly a mid-level crack dealer in Harlem, Manhattan, was murdered in September 1986. Davis went on trial for the murder in October 1989. The prosecution accused Davis of robbing 2 drug dealers when surprised by Lagombre walking in the apartment, prompting Davis' cold-blooded act of savagery. Ballistics test tied Davis' .32 caliber revolver to the killing. 2 defense witnesses testified that on the day of the murder, Davis was in Florida making a rap album. Now, next one, March 1991, conviction for the murder of a Bronx drug dealer. Raymond Viciano, reputedly a drug dealer in the Bronx, was murdered in August 1986. In January 1987, Davis's older brother Eddie Davis was arrested and charged. Allegedly, Eddie and Larry, along with 2 others, attempted a robbery at a Webster Avenue apartment, shot through the door, killing Viciano. A jury convicted Eddie Davis in June 1989. Larry Davis' trial began 5 months later. On the night of March 14, 1991, the jury found him guilty. Already serving 5 to 15 years on weapons convictions, Larry received another 25 years to life. One sentence, creating a loud scene until the judge expelled him. Davis spoke for about an hour, airing again his long-standing complaint that the police and the judicial system were conducting a vendetta against him. Lastly, we'll get into the death of Mr. Larry Davis. Davis was serving his sentence at Shawangunk Correctional Facility near the Ulster County hamlet of Wallkill. At approximately 7 p.m. on February 20th, 2008, a correctional officer overseeing the block yard noticed inmates congregating around an argument between 2 inmates. When the officer went to break it up, he found Davis using his walking cane to fend off an inmate from attacking him with a 9-inch metal shiv. Davis was unsuccessful and was stabbed numerous times. The officer called for assistance and the attacker was restrained and taken to the special housing unit to remain in segregated custody. Davis was taken to the facility infirmary where first aid was rendered. Davis lost much blood, lost consciousness, and eventually showed no vital signs. Not being a trauma level infirmary, the supervising nurse called for an emergency transport by ambulance to St. Louis Hospital in nearby Newburgh, where he was pronounced dead on arrival. After questioning by the state police and the New York State Department of Correctional Services, Inspector General's office, another inmate, Louis Rosado, 42, was charged with the murder. Rosado was already serving a sentence of 25 years to life for murder and assault charges in the early 1980s and had been denied parole in 2007. He was arraigned at Shawangunk Town Court the next morning. DOC's officials said both he and Davis had long disciplinary records, including fights with other inmates, but there was no record of any previous violence between the two. On July 31st, 2008, an Ulster County grand jury indicted Rosado on 9 felony charges related to the stabbing, including 3 different counts of murder, assault, criminal possession of a weapon, and possession of prison contraband. The murder charges carried a potential sentence of life without parole. After his arrest, Rosado was moved to Clinton Correctional Facility, located in upstate New York, close to the Canadian border. On Wednesday, February 25th, 2009, Louis Rosado pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter in Ulster County Court and was sentenced to an additional 10 years in prison to be served consecutively with his current 25 to life sentence for murder. Davis is survived by his daughter, Larima Davis. Now, that concludes the story of the brother Larry Davis. As I always say in a lot of these stories, this is a man who showed a clear musical talent and a clear talent for entrepreneurship. He was a hustler, he was a go-getter, and a lot of people who watch these kind of videos, they like to imply that it's in a person's genes that cause them to be who they are. I would like to argue, like I always argue, that this is a nature versus nurture issue. And I believe that with those same skills, if this brother would have came up in a productive 2-parent home, free of any poverty, he could have easily been one of our Fortune 500 owners. He could have easily been a record label executive. He could have easily been a businessman, but due to, the mean streets of New York City, and due to, of course, the obvious police corruption going on in New York City, we have the tragic case that here lies of Larry Davis, aka Black Rambo, the man who ran off on the plug. He got rich selling drugs for the police. He decided to dub them on their money. He ran off on the plug. They attempted to kill him to keep themselves from getting in trouble. He shot it out with them. He chose the life he lived. He didn't rat on nobody, and you live by the gun, you die by the gun. In this case, the sword. Condolences to that brother. Peace and love to his family. As always, learn from this gentleman. If you have the opportunity to save your own life, by all means do so. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Peace.